Here are some of the top Washington quarters that were sold from the Stephenville collection. And let's start off with a statehood quarter variety coin, one that is very easy to miss if you don't know exactly what to look for too. The coin in question is the 2005 D Minnesota quarter with the satin finish that displays doubling in the form of an additional tree in the background. Look to the right of the state outline towards the fourth tree. In fact, between tree number 3 and tree number 4, where an additional tree can then be spotted in the background that doesn't actually belong there. The coin was graded by PCGS as MS68 and managed to sell at auction for the price of $192. A very subtle variety that can easily be overlooked is the 1946 D over D repunched mintmark coin, as the initial D mintmark was struck in very lightly, and additionally the placement of the secondary D makes it even more challenging. Look towards the north of the primary D mintmark, just between the D and the branches of the reef, and you should be able to just barely make out the outline of what was once a faint D. This coin was graded by PCGS as MS64 and sold at auction for $360. Most varieties, especially when discussing double dies, can be easily categorized and classified to try and understand how the variety came about. You know, at what point during the minting process did something happen to cause the variety to come about? This coin is a bit of a mystery. It's presumably tilted hub doubling, but even that doesn't really explain it fully. You see, the doubling here is only evident on the right side of the left leg of the letter M of America, and on the inside of the top curve of the C in America as well. Very interesting, but a bit of a puzzle. Graded by PCGS as MS65, it was sold at auction for $432. We'll get to another variety from 1944 in just a little bit. That one, however, will be from the Denver Mint, when this one is from San Francisco instead. The 1944 S doubled obverse Washington quarter is a fairly well-known variety that remains available to collectors with a bit of effort. The doubling on this coin is best expressed on the letters of "In God We Trust," where it is mostly seen towards the bottom of the letters. The N of in, the G of God, and then most of the letters of trust are good examples where this doubling can be seen very clearly. Graded by PCGS, this beauty of a coin attained a grade of MS67 and at auction was sold for $456. The Mint started to issue proof coins again in 1950, after having halted the practice completely in 1942. By 1953, when this proof quarter dollar was issued, proof mintages had more than doubled from 50 to 128,000 pieces. With production ramping up so quickly, it was inevitable that a few varieties were bound to creep in, like this 1953 doubled obverse coin, where the doubling on the letters of "In God We Trust" are the best indicators to check it quickly. The tops of the letters of trust are always a good place to start. This coin was graded by PCGS as Proof 68 Cameo and saw a closing price at auction of $492. Now, this coin will still inspire at least some debate between variety specialists. The 1949 D over S coin is believed to be, by some, not to be an overmintmark, but a repunched mintmark from the Denver Mint in the form of a D over D coin instead. The fact that the initial striking is fairly faint doesn't exactly help the situation either. Looking at the mintmark here, you can see that the remnant of what certainly does appear to have been an S can be detected towards the south of the main D mintmark. Further study may well be required, but at least for now, PCGS has managed to sidestep the issue quite nicely by not including any mention of a secondary D or an S mintmark on the label. This coin is graded as MS66 and was sold at auction for $504. In 1944, the US Mint started using a new hub for all Washington quarters, explaining why some details on the obverse appear slightly more sharpened or modified from the previous year's issues. However, that is really not to blame for the doubling that can be found on this 1944 D coin, mostly seen on the letters of Liberty, especially the E, R, T, and Y of that word, where doubling can be best spotted towards the lower half of the letters, displaying towards the right side in this case. This example of the coin was graded by PCGS as MS66+, and at auction it managed to raise $552. The reverse die for this 1953 proof Washington $quarter coin got worn out, with much of the details for the feathers then getting polished away when it was being prepared for striking even more proof coins. So instead of switching out for a fresh die, the tail feathers were then simply and rather crudely re-engraved by hand to try and bring back some of the definition of the design. This example was authenticated as such by PCGS with a grade of proof 67, and at auction it was sold for $630. The 1950 $quarter is best known in terms of varieties for some rather spectacular over-mintmark variety coins, but there is a very attractive doubled reverse variety to search for here as well, and one that can be easily neglected if you're just powering through. There are numerous places of interest to examine to confirm the variety, including the leaves and stems on the left side and the lower wingtips, but the coin is known for the fact that the eagle's beak, specifically the tip of the beak, is doubled very impressively. This example was graded by PCGS as MS67 and was sold at auction for the sum of $660. The 1939 Denver Mint quarter that we are looking at right now is a sneaky little over mintmark variety coin, where a D mintmark was struck over top an existing S mintmark. To see the effect of this, look just below the center of the reef on the reverse of the coin to locate the mintmark. If you have the variety, then you should see the central curve of the S mintmark inside the cavity of the D, as if it's snaking its way through. This coin was graded by PCGS as MS66, and at auction it was sold for the sum of $660. The Washington Quarter series does truly have some uniquely interesting and just fun varieties that are waiting to be discovered. This 1952 proof coin harbors just such an example. This is the 1952 Superbird Quarter. What this actually is some form of an engraving error or mistake, or a very peculiar form of die damage, forming what seems to be the letter S on the eagle's chest. You know, like Superman. A bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's a fairly well-known variety. This example was graded by PCGS as proof 67 plus cameo, and at auction it sold for $720. The 1952 Washington Quarter is best known for some excellent mintmark variety coins, most of them from the San Francisco Mint, but a couple from Denver as well. And while this coin is a 1952 Denver Mint Quarter, it is instead a doubled obverse quarter. The doubling here is noticeable on the date, with the 5 and the 2 being the most noticeable in that respect. The most prominent doubling is found instead on the letters of Liberty. Pay particular attention to the R, T, and Y of that word. Graded by PCGS as MS65, this coin was sold at auction for the total price of $840. Here is a mintmark variety from the San Francisco Mint. This is the 1940s large S Washington quarter, specifically the large S with the more delicate triangular lower serif on the mintmark. This is the same large S mintmark type that was also employed on the scarce 1941 large S nickel coin, apart from being, well, physically larger in size than the regular small S mintmark. Usually found on the 1941 quarter, the bottom serif is distinctly triangular in shape. The coin was graded by PCGS as MS66 Plus, and at auction it was sold for $840. Then we move along to the 1945 S triple die obverse variety coin. Now, the tripling on this coin is very subtle, and in most cases the best you can hope for is to detect some minor doubling instead, to be completely frank. The letters of In God We Trust is a good place to start, with the minor doubling seen towards the left side of the letters. The R and U of trust is a good example of this in particular. You can also spot a similar effect towards the top of the 1 of the date. This example was graded by PCGS as MS66 Plus, and at auction was sold for $960. The 1939 San Francisco Mint Washington quarter harbors a sneaky little double-die obverse variety that is easily overlooked if you're not terribly vigilant. The doubling is not exceedingly strong on this coin, but once you know what to look for, it becomes a lot easier to spot. The best effect of this, in my opinion, is usually on the numbers of the date, displaying towards the right of the numbers. The 1 is doubled arguably the best, with the 9s being doubled both towards the right outside edge and on the inside of the cavity. This example was authenticated by PCGS with a grade of MS67, which secured a closing price at auction of $1,020. Now, the 1941 double-die obverse Washington quarter is one that has been known to specialist collectors for many years, but has seen a definite uptick in popularity as of late. Its recent inclusion in the Cherry Picker's Guide no doubt having an influence on that regard. The doubling here is the best expressed in the letters of In God We Trust, where the O and the D of God, the We and the S and T of trust are all doubled towards the southeast very clearly. This example of the coin was graded as MS66 by PCGS and sold at auction for $1,320. Alright, so here is a fantastically interesting variety, oftentimes called the 1940s Goiter quarter dollar. This coin came about due to a severe die deformation of the obverse of the coin. The area in front of Washington's Adam apple appears to be buckled upwards, while the field just below the jaw is sunken for some unknown reason, leading to a lack of definition in the mouth and chin and the appearance of an inflamed throat, as well as a distortion of the letters of In God We Trust. This example was graded by PCGS as MS65 Plus, and when the coin passed over the auctioneer's block, it sold for the sum of $1,320. A double-die obverse coin from 1943 is next, and of the several similar coins that are out there from the Philadelphia Mint, this is a tremendous example from the San Francisco Mint instead. The doubling here can be seen on virtually all the letters and the date, but is expressed in the best way on the letters of In God We Trust, with strong doubling seen on the letters towards the southeast. Though not to be outdone, the letters of Liberty are all also doubled very uniquely towards the bottom left of the letters. Graded by PCGS as MS66, this exceptional coin was sold at auction for the sum of $1,860. Then we have a very prominent overmintmark variety from the Washington series. This is the 1950 D over S variety, where an S mintmark for San Francisco was initially struck in and then overstruck by a D mintmark from the Denver mint. The remnants of the first S can clearly be seen towards the top left of the D mintmark, and you might be forgiven for concluding that, upon first glance, that this is in fact a D over S mintmark, but the shelf-like flattening of the D towards the right is actually the effects of strike doubling. This coin was slapped by PCGS with a grade of MS66, and at auction it was sold for the sum of $2,400. A coin that you could still, at least in theory, find in pocket change and definitely while coin searching is the double die reverse variety from the Denver Mint of 1968. Here the doubling is evident on almost all the design elements of the coin, at least to some minor or more major degree. The letters of United States of America are affected to an especially pleasing degree. This particular coin also suffers from some rather severe strike doubling, or what is more commonly referred to as machine doubling, which makes for a rather disorienting effect. All the same, this is graded as MS66 by PCGS, and at auction this coin was sold for $2,640. Now, as far as the 1934 quarter is concerned, there are no fewer than 3 design varieties for the obverse of the coin employed in this single year. I go into much greater detail about this in a dedicated video if you want to know more, but suffice it to say that these are known as the light, medium, and heavy motto coins. The light motto is easy enough to spot, as the motto of "In God We Trust" is, at least on most coins seen, barely legible. The example of the light motto variety, as seen here, is graded by PCGS as MS67+, and at auction it was sold for $3,000. There was also a heavy motto type offered to complete the hat trick. This type is identified by the more heavier set letters and the fact that the center peak of the W of "we" being taller than the rest of the letters. This example here was graded as MS67 and at auction sold for $2,520. One of the strongest and most impressive, and as a direct result, also one of the most popular double die obverse varieties in the Washington Quarter series is this coin. Here, the doubling is clearly seen on the letters of "In God We Trust," where every single letter is doubled with dramatic and unmistakable effect. And as if that wasn't quite enough, the numbers of the date as well as the letters of Liberty are also doubled. This coin was graded as MS66 by PCGS, and at auction it was able to secure a final bid of $3,500. And then another 1934 variety coin, but this time it is the medium motto type of 1934. Unlike the previous examples, this type is actually considered the more plentiful of the 3 different reverses that were used in this year. The obverse type is identified by the blunted central peak of the W in "we," as well as by the letters of "In God We Trust" being clearly strengthened overall, better defined than the weak motto, but not quite as thick as the heavy motto type. But what sets this coin apart is the sheer grade level of the piece. At a grade of MS68 from PCGS, it definitely qualifies as a conditional rarity, even if it's not so in absolute terms. At auction, it was sold for an astounding $5,520. With a mintage of 2,797,600 coins, the 1940 D quarter is the last coin in the series to have a mintage of less than 3 million coins, making it a truly sought-after coin by collectors in virtually any grade. This coin, however, is at the top of the conditional census with a grade of MS67+. That means that there is only a single coin known to be finer, an MS68 graded specimen in an NGC slab. When its time on the auction block arrived, this coin raised $1,680 by final call. 1964 was the last year in which the mint issued silver quarter-dollar coins, transitioning to the clad coinage we know today in 1965, or at least on paper, that's what happened. In an effort to avoid creating low mintage rarity, the mint implemented what is known as a date freeze policy, where all silver planchets were to be minted with the 1964 date until they were exhausted, even if those coins were minted in 1965, and in some cases even 1966. They were all to be dated as 1964, and only clad coins were to be dated 1965 and onwards. This example of the 1964 quarter dollar was graded by PCGS as MS67+, leaving only a single coin finer at NGC. At auction, this coin was sold for the sum of $3,360. 1932 was the first year of issue for the Washington quarter-dollar coin, replacing the standing Liberty coin and joining the Lincoln cent to become the second circulating coin to feature a former president on the obverse design. This example features some natural toning, but is spared the heavy, unattractive toning that so often afflicts this issue. Graded as MS67 by PCGS, there are no coins known with a higher technical grade, and at auction this coin sold for $4,560. The first truly modern coin from the National Park series makes its way onto this list now. This coin is a bit of an odd fit for a list like this, but the key word here is conditional rarity, as this coin is truly abundant in grades up to at least MS66, but above that point only a few examples have been certified. In a grade of MS68, like this example, PCGS only has 2 grading events listed, which is why someone completing a competitive registry set would be willing to pay $5,040 for this coin. Production of proof coins at the United States Mint was officially suspended in 1942, and it would not again be resumed until 1950, making this 1942 proof Washington quarter the last of an era, although fortunately not the last of its kind, as we'll see a bit later on. This example is typical in the sense that cameo or deep cameo effects are essentially unknown for this issue. It is extraordinary in terms of its overall technical grade of proof 68 plus from PCGS, making it a prime conditional rarity once again, which allowed it to sell at auction for $5,280. In 1934, there were 3 distinct obverse design varieties for the Washington quarter, known as the light, medium, and heavy motto types, referring to the effect observed on the motto of "In God We Trust." This coin is a prime example of the medium motto type, which appears to be the most plentiful of the 3. Although, and again, the gem level grade of the coin on offer certainly distinguishes it from the pack, graded by PCGS as MS68 with subtle toning on both sides. It was sold at auction for $5,520 when it crossed the auction block. Another relatively modern coin finds its way onto the list now. This is the 2020 Salt River Bay quarter from the National Park series. This was one of the special limited mintage of only 2 million coins struck at the West Point Mint that also include the special V75 privy mark, commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. The sole finest example of such a coin at PCGS, standing at a grade of MS68, it sold at auction for the sum of $6,600. The 1946 quarter from the San Francisco Mint does qualify as a semi-key date for the series, although with a mintage of only 4.2 million coins, it is ranked as the 10th lowest mintage coin in the series overall. This high-grade example displays a vivid, multicolored toning that definitely makes it stand out. Graded by PCGS as MS68, it stands at the very top of the conditional census and sold at auction for no less than $7,500. In 1938, only the San Francisco and Philadelphia mints were striking quarters. Despite the higher mintage of just shy of 9.5 million coins, compared to only 2.8 million from the San Francisco mint, the Philadelphia mint coins appear to be slightly scarcer in the market, or at least equal in terms of gem grade coins. This MS68 graded coin from PCGS is tied for the finest known and at auction was sold for $8,700. Now, at a mintage of 79 million coins, the 1941 Washington quarter had the highest mintage figure for a $quarter coin in the US mint's history, at least up to that point. A strong sign of the growing economy in that year when most of the world was steeped in chaos. This is yet another tremendous conditional rarity, enhanced by a delicate rose gold toning overall with splashes of lavender and bluish green around the edges. Graded by PCGS as MS68, this stunning coin was sold at auction for $8,700. As the mint began striking more and more proof coins in the late 1950s, after resuming the practice in 1950, after nearly a decade of not making any proof coins at all, they inevitably became more proficient at it as time went on, as evidenced by the fact that this 1959 Washington quarter managed to attain a grade of proof 69 deep cameo. Now, there are only a handful of coins that can actually claim this. Literally, actually only 4 examples at PCGS. This one being sold at auction for the price of $9,000. The 1970 Denver Mint quarter is hardly something that you would describe as rare, but it is conditionally rare in grades of MS68 and above, with only 17 grading events listed at that level and only a single coin known with a grade of MS69 at NGC. This MS68 plus level graded coin from PCGS is a dream acquisition for any top-tier registry set collection, going a long way to explain the closing price of the coin at auction of $9,600. Today, the 1957 quarter dollar is mostly remembered as the year that, for the first time, more than 1 million proof coins were minted for this denomination. This coin is not proof, but what it is one of the finest known Washington quarter coins at a grade of MS68. There simply are no other coins known to be at a higher numerical grade, though it does share this particular distinction with about a half a dozen other coins on the population report, to be completely fair. Though, with the type of psychedelic radiant toning that you see on this coin, it can hardly be confused with any other example. At auction, it was sold for the sum of $11,400, setting a new all-time auction record for the issue. Subscribe to WNN and activate notifications with the bell icon to know when new videos are released. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching. Keep collecting and have a fantastic day.